It started with a Craigslist ad that didn't even look real. Night shift cleaner needed. $30 per hour. No experience required. Must follow instructions without question. I'd seen my fair share of scams online, and this one had all the red flags. It felt like some kind of trick or scam, but the pay was too good to ignore. I'd lost my warehouse job 3 weeks ago, and with bills piling up, I couldn't afford to be picky. So, I applied, thinking nothing would come of it. But within an hour, I got a reply. An invitation for an interview at the old Crescent Mall Theater. You know, the one people forgot about after that big multiplex opened downtown. The place looked frozen in time. No new posters, no bright movie ads, just faded prints of old films hanging on cracked walls, their colors washed away by years of dust and sunlight. The air smelled like polished floors and stale air. But underneath it all was another scent, something sweet and burnt, like sugar left too long on the stove. A man was waiting for me in the dim lobby. He introduced himself as Mr. Alden. He wore an old-fashioned uniform, a crisp white shirt, a navy vest, and a silver name tag that read Manager. His hair was neatly combed, every strand perfectly in place, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sean, right?" he asked. I nodded, my throat dry. "You don't have any experience working in theaters?" "No, sir," I said. "But I learn fast." He looked at me for a moment, expression unreadable. "This job isn't about learning, it's about following." Then he handed me a laminated sheet of paper, thick and worn at the corners. At the top, bold letters read, "Rules for night staff." Only 7 rules, simple but strange. I skimmed through them. Do not enter Theater 6 after midnight, no matter what you hear inside. If Theater 2 is already unlocked when you start, lock it immediately and do not look inside. If one knocks on the emergency exit from the inside, do not respond. The concession stand must be cleaned first. Do not eat or drink anything from behind the counter. If the intercom plays music, stop and stand still until it stops. There is no Theater 9. If the screen in Theater 4 turns on by itself, sit and watch. Do not leave until the movie ends. I forced a laugh. "Is this some kind of prank?" I asked. Mr. Alden didn't blink. "You'll find cleaning supplies in the janitor's closet near Theater 1. Your shift starts at 11 o'clock p.m. and ends at 6 o'clock a.m. Never enter a theater during a movie, unless told otherwise." That was it. No forms, no training, no introductions. Just a sheet of creepy rules and a man who made me sign one page confirming I understood the rules. My first shift was quiet, almost too quiet. The place felt abandoned, and the silence pressed against my ears. I cleaned the sticky tiles in the lobby, wiped down counters, vacuumed carpets that smelled of mildew. I avoided the theaters, though curiosity made me peek into Theater 3. Empty rows of cracked red seats faced a blank screen. Nothing strange. At 5:45 a.m., I had my jacket on and keys in hand. Mr. Alden never showed up again that night. I just locked up and left. The second night started normal, until I noticed Theater 2's door. It was slightly open. I remembered the rule: lock it immediately, and don't look inside. The door was cracked about an inch, and a faint blue light flickered from within, weak and dying. I froze. Then I heard it, a dragging sound, like something scraping across the floor. I forced myself to take a breath, pushed the door shut, and turned the lock. My hand wouldn't stop shaking. By the third night, I started thinking about quitting. Nothing had jumped out or screamed at me, but something about that building felt wrong. Time didn't move right. The clocks ticked at different speeds. Sometimes I'd walk down a hallway and swear someone was standing just out of sight. At 3:22 a.m., the intercom crackled to life. Then, music. Not a song, just slow, broken notes, like an old lullaby stretched underwater. It sounded like an ice cream truck from a nightmare. I froze, the mop slipping from my hand and smacking against the wet floor. The sound filled the air, soft but suffocating. The rule echoed in my head. Stand still until it stops. So I did. I didn't move, didn't breathe until finally, after what felt like forever, the music cut out. Silence. I didn't clean much after that. The week dragged on, every night stranger than the last. The building seemed to hum at times, low and deep, like it was alive. I started to believe those rules weren't random. They were survival tips. That became clear the night I heard the knocking. It was around 4 a.m. I was taking out the trash toward the back corridor near the emergency exit when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks. I froze. No one else was supposed to be here. I had checked every theater. The knocks came again, closer this time, echoing down the hall. Then a voice. "Hello?" A woman's voice, soft and trembling. "Can you hear me? Please, I need help. I got locked in." My chest tightened. I stared at the door. She sounded scared, really scared. "Please don't leave me," she begged. Every instinct in me screamed to open that door. But then I remembered something. There was no handle on the outside. That door only opened from inside the theater. So whoever was speaking wasn't supposed to be there. And then she said my name. "Sean, please. I know you're there. I can feel you." That was when I ran. I didn't stop until I was in the front lobby, shaking. The next day, a folded note waited for me on the janitor's cart. The handwriting was neat, precise. "Good. You listened. Not everyone does. You're doing fine. Remember, the rules are for your protection." No signature, no explanation. But it confirmed everything. The knocking was real. The voice was real. And I had been tested. By my second week, I knew that place wasn't just old. It was wrong. The air felt heavier, thicker, like the walls themselves remembered things. The rules weren't suggestions. They were sacred. Break them, and you wouldn't just lose your job. You'd disappear. Still, I stayed. I'd love to tell you it was courage, but it wasn't. It was rent. It was bills. It was my last $63 and a credit card screaming for mercy. I needed that paycheck more than I feared the dark. At least, that's what I thought, because during my second week, I met Harper. I came in early that night, expecting the same quiet, empty theater as usual, but the lobby wasn't silent. Someone was sitting on the snack bar counter, swinging her legs like a bored teenager. She wore a red Crescent Theater hoodie that looked way too big for her, sleeves hanging past her hands. Her hair was wild, messy auburn curls tangled like she'd just walked through a storm. She didn't look like she belonged here. And yet, there she was. "You must be the new guy," she said casually, like we were meeting in a coffee shop and not in this dark, eerie place that smelled like dust and sugar gone bad. "Sean," I replied, still confused. "And you are?" "Harper," she said. "I work here too, on and off, mostly off." She smirked. "How come I haven't seen you before?" I asked. Her grin widened. "Because I only come when I have to, when the rules change." That sentence hit me like ice in my stomach. "What do you mean they change?" I asked slowly. "You think that list is fixed?" she said, sliding off the counter and walking toward me. Her voice was soft but heavy. "No, Sean. The rules grow. They adapt. They punish. And sometimes, they warn." I wanted to ask what that meant, but before I could, she pointed down the hallway. "You need to check Theater 7 tonight." "That's not in the rules," I said. "It is now," she replied. Then she was gone. No sound, no goodbye, just gone. The hallway toward Theater 7 felt wrong, longer than it should have been. The walls seemed to stretch as I walked, each step echoing louder than the last. The flickering overhead lights made it worse. One bulb dimmed completely for a few seconds, leaving me standing in the dark. I looked around for Harper, but she had vanished completely. Just me, the hum of electricity, and the sound of my own heartbeat. I reached Theater 7. The door looked perfectly normal. Cold metal handle, dull paint. I half expected to feel heat or static when I touched it, but it was just cold, lifeless. I pushed it open and peeked inside. The darkness inside wasn't like movie theater darkness. It was deeper, heavier. My flashlight barely cut through it. The beam swallowed up almost immediately. I stepped in, 1 foot over the threshold. Nothing. Another step. Still nothing. Rows of seats stretched out before me like the ribs of a skeleton. The screen was blank. I waited. The air pressed around me. Then, as I turned to leave, the screen flickered. Just once. A flash of static. Then black again. I didn't wait. I backed out slowly, never turning my back on it, then closed the door. Later that night, I found a new laminated sheet sitting on my janitor cart. Same plastic, same font. But now there were 8 rules. Rule 8. Do not enter Theater 7 unless instructed. If you do, exit immediately when the screen flickers. Do not wait for the second flicker. I stared at it for a long time. It hadn't flickered twice. Yet. I sat on the lobby bench, staring at the list. The rules were growing. They really were changing. The theater wasn't just reacting, it was watching. And somehow, that felt worse than anything else. Thursday night, I broke a rule. Not on purpose. At least that's what I keep telling myself. It was around 4:15 a.m. I had just finished cleaning the restrooms and was heading past Theater 4 when I noticed the door slightly open. The screen inside was glowing faintly. A film was playing, old and grainy, with that sepia tone of forgotten reels. A man sat at a table in a small gray kitchen, not moving, just staring straight ahead. The only sound was soft static. I froze. Rule 7 flashed through my mind. If the screen in Theater 4 turns on by itself, sit and watch. Do not leave until the movie ends. Before I could stop myself, my feet were moving. I stepped inside and sat in the middle row. The door closed behind me with a soft click. The man on the screen didn't move. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then, without warning, he turned his head. Not toward anything in the room, but toward me. I could see his face through the static. His eyes locked with mine, and I felt the weight of his stare deep inside my chest. Then he smiled. Slowly, unnervingly. And then, he stood up. Everything after that is a blur. My body locked up. My muscles froze. My vision dimmed. It felt like he was stepping closer, frame by frame, out of the screen and into the theater. When I woke up, I was in the lobby. The sun was rising through the glass doors. My phone was dead. My shoes were gone. A note was taped to the counter. You left too early. Do it properly next time. Below it was one new rule. Rule 9. If the figure on the screen stands, do not look away. Do not close your eyes. Do not move. By the weekend, I'd stopped trying to explain things. I didn't Google the theater. I didn't ask Mr. Alden anything. I didn't even tell my roommate. He probably thought I was cleaning some office at night. But some truths shouldn't be spoken. Harper showed up again on Saturday, sitting cross-legged on the floor of Theater 5. No movie was playing. The room was dark, still, silent except for the faint hum of old lights. "You watched it, didn't you?" she asked, not looking up. "I didn't finish it," I said quietly. She nodded. "Then it's going to keep showing up. Different screens, different places. It wants you to finish." "What happens if I do?" I asked. She tilted her head. "No one knows. How do you know all this?" I asked, but she didn't answer. She just stood up and left. Her footsteps didn't echo. I was alone again. 2 nights later, I saw him again, the man from the film. Not on the screen this time. but in the reflection of the popcorn machine, standing right behind me. His face pale, empty, eyes fixed on mine through the glass. I didn't turn around. I just lowered my eyes, stepped back, and walked away. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just followed a rule that hadn't been written yet, one my gut already knew. If you see it outside the screen, ignore it. I left early that night, 5:30 maybe. The trash wasn't done. The floors were still sticky, but I didn't care. When I came back the next evening, there was another new sheet waiting on the cart. Rule 10. If you see the figure from Theater 4 elsewhere in the building, do not engage, do not speak, do not acknowledge. By the end of the second week, I knew I was too far in to ever walk away. I had started dreaming in the theater's colors, dusty reds, deep blacks, faded golds. I'd wake up to the faint sound of film reels spinning or the rustle of popcorn, even though my room was silent. Something inside me was changing. My fear had changed shape. It wasn't about ghosts anymore. It was about attention, about being seen. The theater wasn't haunted. It was aware, and it was watching me back. There's a point in this job where fear stops being loud. It doesn't scream in your head anymore. It becomes something quiet, heavy, like air in a sealed room, pressing in from all sides. That was week 3 for me. No jump scares, no voices, just the feeling of being noticed every second. And the rules, they didn't just change anymore. They started reacting to me. On Monday, I found a notebook in my locker. I didn't put that thing there. No one mentioned it. It was just a plain black journal, no title, no label, with a leather cover that felt wrong, too warm, like it had a pulse of its own. Inside, a single line was written by hand in red ink. Rule 11. When your shadow stops matching your movements, go to Theater 1. Sit in the front row. Do not look behind you. It didn't look official, not laminated or printed, just scribbled in a rush, like someone was terrified they'd forget. I shut the book fast, pushed it deep into the back of the locker, and tried to act like it never existed. I really should have paid attention. It was around 2:00 a.m. when I noticed it. I was sweeping near the concession stand, letting the steady rhythm of the broom calm me down. Back and forth, back and forth. Then, something felt off. I looked down. My shadow wasn't moving. My body swayed, my arms kept sweeping, but my shadow stood perfectly still, frozen mid-motion. My breath caught. Then, as if waking up late, it jerked suddenly, matching my movement like a puppet with tangled strings. I dropped the broom. My whole body screamed to run, to burst through the lobby doors and breathe the night air again, to see streetlights, people, anything normal. But the memory of that rule came back to me, Rule 11. So I walked to Theater 1. It was empty, quiet, too still. The kind of stillness that only exists underground, where even air feels heavy. I sat in the front row. The lights dimmed behind me. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. I heard the door close with a soft, final click. I sat there counting in my head. 100, 200, 300, maybe 600. Time stopped meaning anything. I just waited for the feeling behind me to go away. It never moved closer. It never made a sound. But I knew it was there. I could feel its stare crawling up my neck, cold and sharp. When the lights came back on, I stood up. My shadow moved with me, perfectly again. The notebook was gone from my locker. On Wednesday, Harper showed up again. She Loba, okayed worse, pale, trembling, eyes dark like she hadn't slept in days. It began quietly. The walls started to move, not shaking, not cracking, just shifting. One moment I was walking past Theater 3. Then suddenly it was Theater 5. When I turned around, the hallway I'd come from was gone, replaced with one I hadn't seen in years. Doors that had been sealed shut were now wide open. Signs started flickering between languages I couldn't read. Sometimes when I stood by the concession stand, The air smelled like seawater, thick and sharp. Other nights, it reeked of rot, like something dead hidden inside the vents. Once, I swear the popcorn machine wasn't full of popcorn. It was full of teeth. That same black notebook came back. The leather still felt warm, almost like skin. It sat on the stool in the projection booth, waiting for me like it had been expecting my return. I opened it. This time, 3 new rules were written in shaky red handwriting. Rule 14. If the marquee outside shows a movie you've seen in your dreams, don't enter that theater. Rule 15. If the projector in Theater 1 shows footage from the future, don't tell anyone what you saw. Rule 16. If you see yourself inside the building while you're still in the building, leave right away. One of you doesn't belong there. I went to Mr. Alden and told him about the walls moving again. He just nodded like it was normal. It does that sometimes, he said. Shouldn't that bother you? I asked. He sighed, sounding tired. The theater isn't really a place, Sean. It's an agreement. With who? I asked. He didn't answer. He turned back to the dusty film reels stacked behind his desk and didn't look at me again. Friday night. I broke Rule 14. I didn't mean to. I didn't even realize it until I was already inside. The door to Theater 8 was open, and soft piano music drifted out, slow, calming, the kind that makes you sleepy. I walked in without thinking. On the screen was my apartment, not a random view. My exact bedroom. The bed, the old fan with the clicking blade, the poster on the wall with one corner peeled away. Someone was lying in the bed. It was me. I turned to leave, but the door was gone. Just a wall. My chest tightened as I backed up toward the screen. The figure on the bed shifted, reached for the nightstand, picked up a phone, and answered it. There was no ringing, no sound, but it nodded like someone was talking to it. Then it turned its head toward the screen, toward me, and smiled. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was in Theater 3, alone. No sound, no light, nothing on the screen. My phone buzzed in my pocket. 6 missed calls, all from my own number. Saturday night, Mr. Alden wasn't in his office. The light was still on, but the room was empty. His coat was gone, his desk cleared, and the drawer where the rules were kept hung open, empty. I searched every inch of the building, projection booth, storage, theaters 1 through 8. He wasn't there. But there was something new. Theater 9. You remember Rule 6, right? There's no Theater 9. But at the end of the east hallway, where there used to be a broom closet, a new door had appeared, large, black, with the number 9 painted on it in white. The paint was still wet. I didn't touch it. I just stared, frozen. From behind the door came the slow, heavy sound of breathing. When I went back to the lobby, Harper was there. I hadn't seen her in over a week. She looked different, thinner, pale, like she hadn't eaten or slept. You found it, she said quietly. Theater 9. I nodded. It wasn't supposed to open yet, she whispered. Where's Mr. Alden? I asked. She looked down the hallway. He made a deal. What kind of deal? I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she handed me an old rusted film reel. Play this in Theater 5. Midnight. Don't stop it. Don't leave. When it ends, you'll know what to. Yo. I opened my mouth to argue, but she was already gone. Midnight came too soon. I stood in the projection booth of Theater 5, hands shaking as I loaded the reel. The projector groaned and flickered to life. The film began to play. It wasn't a movie. It was security footage, grainy black and white shots of the theater lobby, completely still. Then someone entered the frame. Me. Not from the past, not earlier that night, me right then, walking past a camera that shouldn't exist. The footage jumped to a different view, the break room. I was there again, eating from a plastic container. Another cut. The projection booth. I was standing at the projector, watching the film I was currently watching. I looked up. I saw myself, watching myself. The air turned heavy, vibrating with static. My teeth ached like they were humming. From the hallway outside came footsteps, slow, familiar, deliberate. I turned off the projector, and every light in the building went out. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing in the main lobby. The wall screens weren't showing trailers anymore. They were showing me. Every mistake, every broken rule, every time I ignored a warning. I saw myself opening the Lost and Found. I saw myself blinking during the Theater 4 screening. I saw the exact moment my shadow froze. And then I saw Mr. Alden. He was in Theater 9, standing under the flickering light, hands raised as a dark figure loomed over him. It wasn't a person, it was something else. A hole shaped like a man, with a spinning film reel where its face should have been. Mr. Alden said something, but there was no sound. The footage ended. The screen went black. Then white text appeared beneath it. Rule 17. If Theater 9 opens, a manager must be given. And somewhere behind me, someone started crying. I followed the sound down the hallway. Harper was sitting against the wall, shaking, her hands clutching her head. "It wanted him," she whispered. "He thought if he gave himself, the door would close, but it never wanted just him." My throat went dry. "Then what does it want?" Harper slowly lifted her tear-streaked face. "An audience," she said. That night, I dreamed of rows of empty faces staring at me, eyes wide, not blinking, not breathing. I was standing on a stage with no script, no words to say, just a blinding spotlight burning my skin. Behind me, a door creaked open. The number 9 was painted on it in dripping blood. I woke up screaming. The notebook lay on my pillow, open to a new page. Only one rule this time. Rule 18. There must always be a performance. I didn't go to work that night. I didn't call anyone. I just sat in my apartment with every light on, clutching my phone. At exactly midnight, my TV flickered to life by itself. No sound, no remote, just static. Then my face appeared on the screen. Then the theater. Then Theater 9, waiting. For the next 3 nights, I stayed home, trying to ignore it. But every night at 12 a.m., it happened again. The TV turned on to static, then a single flash of Theater 9. The door was always there, never open, never shut, just waiting. My phone kept buzzing with unknown numbers, area codes that didn't exist. No messages, no words, just the silence between missed calls. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The theater had crawled into my head. I wasn't living anymore. I was waiting. On the 4th night, I found a flyer taped to my apartment door. It was old, yellowed. The theater's logo faded, the same one they stopped using decades ago. It read, "Tonight only, final performance. Doors open at midnight." And below it, scribbled in pen, "Bring the book. Don't be late." I hadn't seen the notebook since that last rule appeared, but when I turned around, there it was, sitting on my kitchen table, open to a blank page. A pen rested beside it like it had been waiting. My hands shook as I picked it up. I didn't lock the door when I left. I knew I wouldn't need to. The theater was glowing when I arrived. Not just the lobby, but every single screening room. The light pulsed softly behind the glass like heartbeats. The air smelled of ash and something sweet, like burned sugar. Harper stood in the lobby, pale and still. She didn't say anything. She just nodded toward the east hallway, then walked away. I wanted to stop her, ask if this was the end or just another beginning, but the look on her face told me everything. She wasn't coming back. The door to Theater 9 was wide open. The number was gone, just blistered paint where it used to be. Inside, there were no seats, no screen, only a long red carpet stretching into the dark. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a dull thud. The hallway twisted as I walked. Sometimes it looked like backstage, ropes hanging, props scattered. Sometimes it changed into narrow tunnels that smelled of film chemicals and dust. Once, it became my childhood bedroom, the same peeling stars still clinging to the ceiling. Everything flickered, like a broken reel skipping through channels. I clutched the notebook. Its pages flipped on their own. Some showed words, others sketches. One page had the lobby on my first day. The next, the same place covered in rot and vines. Another just said, "You are both the actor and the stage." Finally, the corridor opened into a vast auditorium, bigger than any building in the town could hold. Rows upon rows of red velvet seats stretched into the blackness. Every seat was filled. Shapes sat silently, watching. The stage lights snapped on. Mr. Alden stood at the center. He looked tired, older, his face lined. But when he saw me, he smiled faintly. "You came," he said. "I didn't have a choice." "None of us do," he murmured. He held out his hand. I gave him the notebook. He flipped to the last page, then handed me the pen. "Write the last rule." I stared down at the blank page, my hand trembling. What do I write? He stepped back, his shadow melting, into the dark. "What you've learned. What comes next. This is your theater now." I wanted to scream at him, to ask why me, but the crowd was waiting. The silence was thick. I lifted the pen. It felt heavier than it should. Slowly, I wrote, "Rule 19. When the curtain rises, you must perform, even if you don't remember the lines." As soon as I finished, the lights blazed white hot. The notebook ignited, burning to ash between my fingers. The audience clapped once, all together, in perfect rhythm. Then the curtain rose. What happened next isn't easy to explain. It wasn't acting. It was like living my memories, every lie, every mistake, every broken promise. My younger self, my fears, my guilt, all of it performed on the stage. I didn't know the lines, but my mouth spoke them anyway. It wasn't a story. It was a confession. The audience didn't move. They just watched, breathing in sync, eyes fixed. When it was over, I stood alone under the spotlight. Then I understood. This wasn't an ending. It was my initiation. My audition, not to escape, but to stay. The lights dimmed. Silence settled. Then the applause started again, slow and cold, like rain before a storm. The figures stood, clapping with hands that didn't quite touch, soundless and wrong. Mr. Alden stepped beside me. He looked at the crowd, then at me. "They accept." "Accept what?" I whispered. "You, as the new manager." I shook my head. "No, I didn't agree to this." He smiled softly. "You performed. You wrote the rule. That was the deal." The floor creaked beneath us. The audience began to fade, their shapes dissolving into white static, rising into the rafters like smoke. Mr. Alden started to fade too. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," he said, "you watch the doors. You write the new rules." "Wait, I don't know how to do this." He smiled one last time. "You didn't know then either." Then he vanished. I woke, up in the office. His chair, his desk, the clock ticking softly behind me. The keys were in my pocket. The janitor's cart was freshly stocked. The first shift started in an hour. On the desk sat a new black notebook, first page blank. A small note was taped beside it. Rule 1. Never let them know you're afraid. They can smell it. I leaned back, took a slow breath, and waited for the first knock on the door.